At dawn, the river breathes like a whisper. The water moves slowly, carrying silt and fragments of memory, brown and patient, sliding past reeds and silent boats. Mist drapes itself across the banks, soft as cotton, quiet as sleep. The wide delta lies half awake, listening to the call of birds whose wings cut the air like gentle strokes of a brush. A fisherman rinses his net in silence. The strands glisten for a moment, then the water falls back, silver against brown, shimmering for an instant before dissolving into stillness. He says nothing. He simply looks to the east, where the first line of light turns the horizon into a faint memory of fire. Behind him, in the village, a woman kindles a clay stove. She blows carefully, lips pursed, coaxing the coal until it glows red. Rice is rinsed in a brass bowl, the grains slipping like tiny stones between her fingers. Steam begins to rise, carrying a fragrance both simple and eternal. The air holds it, as if unwilling to let it go. Children chase a duck along the embankment. Their bare feet splash through puddles left by last night's rain. Their laughter is quiet, as if they too respect the early hour. The old mango tree watches with still patience, its roots drinking deep from earth that has known countless seasons. Here, time is not counted in hours. It is measured in the bending of the oar, in the swelling of the rice stalk, in the coming of clouds that drift like caravans across the endless sky. The people of this land live by dawn and dusk, by flood and ebb, by silence and song. Life is not so different from our own, only slower, softer, more attuned to the rhythm of water and stone. The morning market stirs near the bend. Baskets of okra and gourds, heaps of red chilies like little embers, fish still quivering from the night's catch, all gather in quiet abundance. Voices rise and fall, never sharp, always measured, as though the river itself teaches calm. A bargain is not a victory, it is a passage, as gentle as the breeze that curls the surface of the water. In the distance, the faint outline of a terracotta shrine glows under the first sun. Its spire rises from the mist like a memory of stone. Weathered but unyielding, generations have passed through its shadow farmers, offering prayers before harvest, mothers tying threads for the safety of children, travelers whispering vows for safe return. Stone remembers what men forget. And beyond these shrines, beyond the villages, lie the great rivers themselves. Ganges, Brahmaputra, Meghna, not as lines on a map, but as living presences, each carrying history in its current. They split and merge, embrace and release. Like dancers who never stop moving, the delta is their gift, their canvas, their eternal whisper. For thousands of years, this land has been shaped not by swords, but by soil, not by thunder, but by patience. Kingdoms have risen on its banks, palaces have mirrored themselves in its waters, armies have crossed, banners once flared, then faded like morning mist. Yet through it all, the ordinary rhythm of daily life remained, men sowing and reaping, women weaving and singing, children laughing and sleeping. This is the essence of Bengal, not a battlefield, but a home, not a shout, but a murmur, Its strength is not in the clash of arms, but in the endurance of fields, looms, and river channels. Even when storms arrive, tearing roofs and flooding fields, the people wait with patience. They mend, they rebuild, they whisper to each other that the river will also give as much as it takes. And so, as we begin this story tonight, we do not open with conquest or with fall. We open with silence, with the sound of the river at dawn, with the patient stirring of a pot of rice, with the faint echo of a flute that drifts across the fields, low and uncertain, like a voice half asleep. The history of the Bengalis is a history of water and thread, of soil and song. It is remembered not only in chronicles of kings, but in the daily breath of common life in terracotta bricks that hold the warmth of sun, in muslin cloth, fine enough to pass through a ring, in songs that float on the night wind long after voices are gone. These are not loud memories, they are quiet, like embers glowing under ash, waiting to warm again when touched. Tonight, let us walk gently into this land. Let us step across the bunds that divide paddy fields. Let us pause in courtyards where women grind spices, where old men tell stories, where children fall asleep on mats while rain patters on the thatch. We will move as the river moves slow, curving, patient, whispering, not to disturb their sleep, but to listen, not to wake the past, but to let it murmur its eternal song. And so the journey begins. Through rice and rain, through cloth and clay, through ports and prayers, through what was ordinary, yet became eternal. The whisper of the delta will be our guide. The memory of its people will be our lamp. The silence of its night will be our rest. And the city slept beneath the northern sky. The Bengal Delta begins not with a single river, but with many arms of water that divide and rejoin, braiding across the land like silver threads laid upon green cloth. From the Himalayan snows, from distant valleys, the Ganges and the Brahmaputra drift downward, carrying stories in their current stories of mountains, of stones, of forests left far behind. When they arrive here, in this patient land, they spread wide, becoming countless channels, small and large, all whispering at once. At dawn, the fields shine. Tiny mirrors of water catch the sky. Each paddy reflects the pale pink of the horizon. A farmer steps into the shallow water, his bare feet sinking into the soft mud. Beside him, his wife bends carefully, planting young shoots of rice, their tips trembling like delicate grasshoppers. The work is slow, but not tiring. Each motion is repeated, measured, and steady, the rhythm of patience. When harvest comes, the village changes. Drums thrum softly in the square. Garlands of marigold glow at the doors. A clay pot of milk is placed over the fire until it boils over a blessing for the season. Men bend with their sickles, cutting stalks that shine gold in the sun. Women tie the sheaves with quick fingers, stacking them neatly, building pyramids of plenty. There is laughter here, and songs sung in low voices, carried across the fields like the sound of a river at night. Children chase one another between the piles of straw, their joy as natural as the flight of the cranes that circle overhead. Grain, simple and golden, is their true treasure. It does not glitter, but it nourishes. It does not vanish, but it returns with every season. At noon, the sun is heavy. The fields shimmer with heat. The air wavers. A boy lies in the shade of a bamboo fence, his head resting on a folded cloth. A dog curls beside him, twitching in dreams. Far away, thunder murmurs, warning of storms that may come in days ahead. Even the birds are still, standing on one leg in the shallow ponds, patient as statues. The river seems to sleep, only the faintest ripple showing that it still breathes. Yet life continues. Always. In the afternoon, sails rise from the creeks. Boats with bamboo masts slip forward, their white cloth swelling with the southern breeze. These boats carry more than goods, they carry memory. Routes are not written on paper but remembered in the mind, passed from father to son, whispered on evenings when the lanterns burn low. The river itself is the teacher, showing when to bend, when to wait, when to follow the deeper current. On the bank, a potter shapes clay. His wheel spins slowly, steadily, until the mud lifts into form a jar, a bowl, a vessel to hold water through the dry days. Not far away, a carpenter smooths the wood of a mast, preparing it for voyages yet to come. Each craft is tuned to the river, answering its moods with patience. Floods come, droughts follow, but work continues. Always. Hands move with the rhythm of necessity, and necessity teaches calm. Evening meal. In the courtyard, steam rises from the rice pot. Lentils simmer, yellow as sunset, while chilies add a sharp fragrance. Family gathers, seated on the floor, hands clean, voices gentle. They eat without hurry. Every mouthful is shared time, shared silence, shared memory. Conversation flows in low tones, punctuated by laughter, as soft as the light of oil lamps. The meal is not grand, but it is complete. It fills the body, but also the heart. Darkness settles on the thatched roofs. The fields sigh in the night wind. Fireflies rise like floating embers. Drifting above banana leaves, the moon appears in the river, a broken mirror of light on water. Somewhere, unseen, a flute begins one long note, then another, wandering like a thought, searching for rest. The village grows quiet, step by step, until only the river speaks. Challenges come as mist, sometimes too much rain, and the embankments must be repaired. Sometimes too little, and wells must be shared. A neighbor's cow may wander into the fields, trampling seedlings, but even then, there are no angry shouts. A rope, a smile, a guiding hand. Patience resolves what anger would break. This is the secret of the Delta, not conquest, not command, but cooperation. Fields ripen only when shared. Boats return only when many hands row. The rivers remind the people, year after year, that survival is not a solitary act. It is a chorus, a quiet song sung together. And so, beneath the northern sky, the people of Bengal close their eyes, the fields sleep, the boats drift into dreams. The river whispers eternal. Whisper Memory, silence, patience, dawn. Dusk. River. Stone. Eternal. And the city slept beneath the northern sky. Before the sun fully rises, the loom begins its gentle breath. The warp is stretched, pale and straight. Like the horizon before dawn, the weft waits quietly. A road about to be warped. A weaver sits cross-legged, back straight, hands patient. His shuttle glides with a soft tick, tick, tick. The sound like raindrops falling on bamboo eaves. This is not noise, but rhythm, a prayer spoken without words. He works with cotton so fine that it seems more cloud than fiber. Soaped, combed, and spun until it remembers only softness. It obeys the touch of fingers as light as breath. The people call it muslin. It is said to be thin enough to slip through a ring, yet strong enough to hold a lifetime of care. It does not shout its beauty, it whispers, and those who wear it feel cooled even in the fiercest noon, as if wrapped in a piece of dawn itself. By morning, the market gathers at the riverside. Boats crowd the gut, their hulls heavy with baskets of fish, jars of indigo, heaps of pepper and salt. Among them, bundles of muslin rest, wrapped in reed mats. A merchant lifts one bolt and lets it slip across his palm. No scale can weigh such a cloth. It is judged by touch, by the way it falls, by the way light passes through it like water through fingers. Bargains are spoken softly, for here commerce is not a battle but a tide. It flows, it retreats, it flows again, and always. The river listens. Children run between the stalls, carrying skeins of fresh thread. Women dye the cloth in vats of color saffron bright as midday, indigo deep as dusk, vermilion bold as the setting sun. Skeins hang across bamboo poles, fluttering in the breeze like prayer flags. Trembling with light, the air smells of wet dye, of spice, of river water. The market is not loud, it hums, like a hive of bees on a calm afternoon. At noon, the weaver returns to his workshop and finds a flaw. One line has slipped, uneven, a thread out of harmony. He does not curse. He sighs and begins to undo the length of cloth, careful not to break what is delicate. Undoing is also part of creation. Patience, once again, is the law. Outside, the sun strikes hard upon the river. The air trembles with heat. Even the crows fall silent, their wings spread to catch any faint breath of wind. The loom, too, seems to rest, waiting for the hand to guide it back to balance. But balance returns. By afternoon, visitors come from the port, a clerk with wax tablet, a sailor with hands cracked by salt, a broker who knows the names of winds. They speak of far harbors where muslin is prized like silver, where queens dream of cloth as light as air. They speak of channels shifting like living creatures, of sandbars that appear overnight, of tides that rise without warning. The weaver listens, but does not stop his work. For him, the sea is distant, the loom is his ocean, and patience his only compass. In the village, a wedding approaches. The bride's mother smooths a white length of muslin across her daughter's lap. The cloth shimmers, catching every ray of light. as if woven from water itself. Women gather, their palms painted with turmeric and henna, their voices ululating softly in joy. The grandmother hums a melody that once soothed a fever, now turned to blessing. The cloth is more than garment, it is memory, protection, promise. It will outlast the feast, outlast the day, and perhaps even outlast the lives that hold it. Threads carry stories, just as rivers carry silt. Evening shadows lengthen, the weaver's arms ache, but he continues, steady as the moon's climb. In his mind, he counts the threads, each one a line in an invisible poem. He does not hurry. If the cloth is finished tomorrow instead of today, the world will not end. The muslin must be correct. For beauty is not speed, beauty is accuracy, gentleness, and silence beyond the door. The river shifts with the tide, bringing smells of brine, of fish, of distance. Boats groan against their ropes, waiting for release. Night descends, and the port glows with torches. The flames flicker, reflected on wet wood, on restless water. Men load bales of cloth onto ships whose masts pierce the sky. Some bolts remain for local markets. Others sail for distant shores. All of them carry something more than fabric. They carry the calm of patient hands, the memory of villages that spin their dreams into thread, the silence of looms that whisper at dawn. If one lifts a length of muslin to the window, the world beyond appears softer. Edges blur, light diffuse, shadows lose their harshness. It is as though the cloth teaches a new way of seeing, forgiving, patient, kind. This is how the people of Bengal have learned to live, not with sharpness, but with gentleness, not with haste, but with endurance. The loom quiets, the shuttle rests, the weaver leans back, listening to the night as if it were another thread in the cloth. And the river, faithful and eternal, moves on, whispering to itself in darkness, and the city slept beneath the northern sky. The soil of Bengal is not only for rice, it is also the womb of clay, soft, red, pliant, waiting beneath every step, ready to be shaped by human hands. The river leaves it as a gift each season. Silt and earth mingled until it can be rolled, pressed, carved, and fired into form. For centuries, this humble clay has been turned into vessels for water, into lamps for night, into bricks for temples. It is a second harvest, quieter than rice, but just as necessary. At dawn, a potter squats by his wheel. His hands are wet, his palms firm, his touch light. The wheel spins slowly, humming like a low song. A lump of clay rises under his guidance, swelling into shape. First a jar, then a bowl, then a lamp that will hold a flame against the darkness. He does not hurry. Each form appears in its own time, as though the earth itself remembers what it wants to be. In the village courtyard, rows of fresh pots dry in the sun. Children dart among them like sparrows, warned to be careful, but laughing anyway. Women carry water in jars balanced on their hips. The clay cool against the skin, even in the heat of day. At dusk, little lamps are filled with oil and lit one by one. glowing like stars fallen to the earth. The light is gentle, golden, and fragile, yet it pushes back the night with quiet confidence. Clay, turned to fire, becomes part of the rhythm of life, morning water, evening light, constant, eternal. But clay is also fragile. A child stumbles, and a jar shatters. A flood comes, and the kiln is drowned. A drought follows, leaving no firewood for the furnace. In these moments, silence covers the courtyard. The potter sighs, collects the shards, and begins again. Nothing is permanent. Even bricks that build temples crack under rain, their terracotta carvings fading with centuries. Time breathes, and clay obeys. Beyond the villages, shrines of red brick rise among the trees. Terracotta temples, their walls carved with scenes of gods and mortals, elephants and horses, vines and blossoms. Every surface is alive. Each brick a page in a stone book. Pilgrims pause at the steps, touching the warm walls, reading with their fingers. The temples glow at sunrise, fiery red, and darken at dusk, cooling into shadows. They are monuments, yes, but also memories. Each brick shaped by a hand, each figure carved by a mind that once dreamed of eternity. During festivals, these temples awaken. Drums echo, conch shells blow, bells ring through the air. Men and women bring offerings, flowers, milk, sweets, water carried in clay vessels. Songs rise, weaving with the smoke of incense. The terracotta figures on the walls seem almost to move, their horses galloping, their dancers bending, their gods smiling. For a night, stone becomes life again. The river nearby reflects the lamps, carrying their light downstream, scattering it like stars across the water. But when the festival ends, silence returns. The lamps die one by one. The river carries away the flowers, the ashes of incense. The temples remain, but their carvings are softened by rain and moss. What once was sharp becomes blurred, like memory itself. Travelers pass. Villagers come and go. Generations rise and fall. The bricks endure, yet they fade. This is the nature of clay. It promises permanence but whispers fragility. In every household, clay continues its work. A mother cooks rice in a pot, darkened by countless meals. A child drinks from a cup chipped at the rim. A lamp burns low beside a bed where an elder sleeps. Even in their simplest forms, clay objects hold memory of hands that shaped them, of fires that hardened them, of days lived around them. They are not treasures to be hoarded, but companions to be used, broken, replaced, and remembered. In the cool season, when air is crisp and the sky clear, craftsmen gather for fairs. Stalls fill with terracotta toys, animals painted with white lines, whistles shaped like birds. Children clutch them with joy, blowing sharp little notes that pierce the calm air. Women choose new water jars, sturdy and plain. Men purchase tiles to repair the roof before monsoon returns. The fair is quiet compared to others. No shouting, no haggling, only steady trade, smiles, and the hum of community. Clay, in all its forms, ties people together. At night, the potter returns to his wheel. The fire glows in the kiln, red and steady. Inside, pots are hardening, becoming strong enough to hold water, flame, or grain. The potter sits in silence, listening to the crackle of wood, watching sparks rise into the dark sky. He knows some pieces will break, some will survive, some will be carried far away, some will remain here for centuries. It does not matter. His work is not for eternity, it is for today, for tomorrow, for life as it is lived. Clay teaches a lesson as old as the river. Nothing lasts forever, but everything matters. A jar that holds water for one family. A brick that holds a temple wall for 1,000 years. Both come from the same earth. Both return to it. Fragility and endurance are not enemies, they are partners. Together, they weave the quiet story of Bengal, and so the lamps flicker out. The temples rest in their red silence. The pots cool in the kiln, waiting for morning. The river sighs against its banks, carrying silt for the next harvest of clay, and the city slept beneath the northern sky. The life of Bengal is measured not by clocks, but by clouds. Every year, the monsoon arrives like an old guest who never forgets the path. Sometimes early, sometimes late, but always certain. The people look to the horizon in May, searching for the dark line of clouds that will bring the rain. They listen for the first rumble of thunder, low and far, rolling across the sky like a drum, announcing the rhythm of the year. When the rains come, the world changes. Fields that were brown turn green. Ponds swell. Rivers rise with a restless voice. Water pours from the sky, heavy and endless, soaking the thatched roofs until they drip in steady rhythm. Children rush into the downpour, their laughter mixing with the sound of falling rain. Buffaloes wallow in muddy pools. Birds shake their wings and scatter, while farmers smile, relieved that the crops will live. Along the embankments, men walk with spades on their shoulders. They patch the bunds that hold back the flood, piling mud upon mud, shaping the land into channels. Some water must be welcomed. Some must be guided. Some must be refused. The people know that the river is both friend and danger, generous in one season, merciless in the next. Patience is their armor, and memory is their guide. In the villages, the calendar is not made of dates but of tasks. This week, transplant seedlings. Next week, mend the canals. After that, watch the sky, for rain may come too fast or not at all. Each season writes itself in the earth. Elders speak of years when the floods carried away entire fields, and of other years when cracks split the ground, leaving rice yellow and thin. The young listen carefully, for the memory of weather is as precious as grain. When rain softens, life shifts indoors. The courtyard becomes a sea of puddles. So families gather close. Children huddle near lamps. Women spin thread. Men carve wood or repair nets. The sound of rain outside is constant, a lullaby that wraps the house. Meals are simple but warm, steaming rice. Lentils, green chilies. Stories pass from one mouth to another, of gods who ride the clouds, of rivers that speak to men in dreams. The night feels endless, but also safe, as if the storm itself is a blanket. There are nights when the river grows too loud. The current swells, foam gathers, and wooden boats strain against their ropes. Families lie awake, listening, wondering if the embankment will hold. Yet even in fear, there is no panic. Men rise, take their spades, walk to the bund in silence. They pile earth. They tie bamboo poles. They work until dawn, shoulders bent but steady. If the water wins, they retreat. If the bund holds, they return. Either way, they endure. When the clouds finally pass, the land shines. Fields stretch green and endless. Ponds brim with fish, and the air smells of wet earth, rich and sweet. The people emerge like plants themselves, refreshed, hopeful, ready. They know the flood has left behind silt, the finest soil for the next planting. The river takes, but it also gives, and so gratitude and caution live together in every heart. On certain mornings, when the monsoon light is gentle, one can see children sailing paper boats in the flooded lanes. They crouch, eyes wide, watching the tiny crafts float and turn. Each boat is a wish, each channel a dream of the sea. The laughter rises, echoing against wet walls, carried away by the water. These small games are lessons. The river is not only work, but wonder. As the season ends, the air clears, the sky turns sharp blue, the ground dries, and festivals return. Drums sound in the temple courtyards. Lamps are lit, and people dress in clean muslin, brightened with dyes. Offerings are carried in clay vessels. Songs rise, and the community gathers with joy. The storm has passed, life has endured. The people bow their heads in thanks, not for peace alone, but for the cycle itself, for the flood, for the drought, for the gift of renewal. The monsoon is not an enemy, it is a teacher. It shows how to bend without breaking, how to wait without despair, how to work together without pride. It reminds the people that time is not a straight line but a circle. Rain, flood, harvest, silence, rain again. The river writes the calendar, and all obey it. Those who listen survive. Those who resist are carried away. And so generation after generation learns patience. The oldest wisdom of the Delta. Night falls on the wet fields. The frogs sing. The fireflies glow. The smell of damp earth lingers. In the huts, people sleep at last. Their walls patched. Their hearts quiet. The river, swollen and tired, sighs under the moonlight. Clouds drift, breaking apart, revealing the stars, and the city slept beneath the northern sky. In Bengal, music is not only performed, it is lived, breathed, carried like a fragrance through the air of courtyards and riverbanks, long before day breaks. When mist still drifts over the fields, A voice sometimes rises from a distant hut, a prayer sung softly, meant not for an audience, but for the dawn itself. The song floats over the water, mingling with the call of birds, with the rustle of bamboo leaves. It is a reminder that in this land, devotion and melody are never far apart. The Bhakti saints once walked these roads, barefoot and unadorned, whispering verses to the divine as if to a beloved friend. Their words were simple, yet deep, promising that God dwelt not in palaces of stone, but in the beating of a human heart. Villagers listened, their faces calm, their bodies weary from labor, but their spirits stirred even today. Their songs echo in quiet gatherings, recited under trees where elders sit with closed eyes, nodding to the rhythm of remembered devotion. On the riverbanks, another tradition lives: the wandering balls, clad in saffron robes faded by sun and rain. They carry nothing but a one-stringed instrument and the certainty of their voices. When they sing of love, of longing, of the soul's endless search for freedom. Their music is not polished, it is raw, trembling, filled with breath and silence between the notes. Villagers pause from their chores to listen, leaning on spades, wiping sweat from brows. Children gather around, wide-eyed, not always understanding the words, but feeling their warmth. The ball does not ask for coins. Though some may offer, he asks only for listening, for a moment of shared silence after the song ends. In the towns, the Sufi khankahs hold their own music. Courtyards glow with lanterns. Carpets are spread, and the faithful gather at dusk. The qawwal begins, his voice strong, then softer, then strong again, repeating lines until the words become more than words. Drums beat steadily, harmoniums drone, hands clap in rhythm, and the listeners sway, eyes half closed. The song does not demand attention, it carries the listener inward, toward a silence deeper than sleep. When the music finally stops, the quiet is profound, heavy, like the hush that follows thunder. Music in Bengal is not confined to sacred spaces. It is woven into daily life, like thread into muslin. A woman grinding spices hums softly, her rhythm keeping pace with the stone. A boatman sings as he poles upriver, his voice carrying across the current, guiding the oar as much as his arm. Children sing play songs while jumping rope or spinning tops. Even in markets, voices rise in half melodies, sellers calling out in tones that almost rhyme, almost chant. Life itself becomes a song, and silence the resting place between verses. Festivals brighten this music further. During Durga Puja, drums thunder, conch shells blow, cymbals clash. The sound is not harsh, it is joyous, filling the narrow streets with a heartbeat that all share. Men and women dance in circles, arms lifted, eyes shining with devotion. Clay idols stand tall, painted in bright colors, watching with stillness as the crowd sways below. At night, when the lamps flicker on the river and the drums grow faint, the silence feels larger for all the sound that came before. Silence here is not emptiness, it is fullness. A cup brimming after the water has settled. There are also quiet songs, meant only for the household. A mother croons as she rocks her child. Her melody half words, half breath. An old man sings a slow line while turning the pages of a manuscript, not to display, but to remember, even when no one is listening. The song continues. It is the companion of solitude, the murmur of memory. The power of this music is not in performance, but in presence. It is not meant to impress, but to soothe, to remind, to awaken the heart gently. Song and silence do not oppose each other. They live as one. Each note leads to a pause. Each pause makes the note shine brighter. In the same way, life here is made not only of work and struggle, but of the spaces between the rest after harvest, the sigh after prayer, the stillness after laughter. Travelers once wrote of hearing music drifting from Bengal's villages at night, so soft that they thought it was the wind. But the people knew it was more than wind. It was memory, carried across water and field, threading together the living and the gone. A tune hummed by an ancestor long ago could still be heard, reshaped, reborn, yet the same. In that sense, music is the truest history of this land, fragile as breath, eternal as stone. The night deepens, drums fade, voices quiet, the last lamp flickers. On the riverbank, a ball lies down beneath the stars, his instrument beside him, his lips still moving in silent prayer. In the town, the kanka grows still, carpets empty, lanterns dark. In the village, mothers hush their children, and the lullaby becomes the last song of the day. Silence folds over the land like a cloak, heavy but gentle, and the city slept beneath the northern sky. The lotus rises from the mud yet remains unstained. It is the image most beloved in Bengal, a symbol of purity in a world of impermanence. Its petals open with the sun, fold with the dusk, and drift on the surface of still ponds like fragments of quiet thought. It is no surprise, then, that when sculptors of the parlor age turned stone into vision, they carved the lotus again and again, placing it beneath thrones of gods, in the hands of saints, at the feet of teachers. Lotus and stone, two opposites. Yet together they told the story of Bengal's search for the eternal, the Pallas, who ruled this land more than 1,000 years ago, became known not for conquest alone, but for their devotion to learning and art. Monasteries rose under their patronage, vast universities where monks gathered from every corner of Asia, Nalanda to the west, Vikramashila by the river, Somapura in Bengal itself, red brick complexes with courtyards, libraries, and shrines. Pilgrims arrived after long journeys, robes faded, sandals worn, carrying manuscripts wrapped in cloth. They came seeking silence, wisdom, and the chance to sit at the feet of masters who could guide them toward liberation. Inside these halls, rows of cells lined the cloisters. Each cell held little more than a mat, a lamp, and a student bent over a palm leaf manuscript. At dawn, chants echoed across the courtyards, low and resonant, filling the air like a slow tide. In classrooms shaded by stone pillars, teachers spoke of philosophy, medicine, grammar, astronomy, not loudly, but steadily, their voices clear against the rustle of leaves. Learning was not hurried, it was patient, like the unfolding of a lotus. Sculptors too found their place here. In workshops near the monasteries, they worked blocks of black basalt with chisels and hammers. They carved Buddhas seated in meditation, their eyes half closed, lips calm, hands forming gestures of teaching and reassurance. Each figure sat upon a lotus throne, petals opening beneath. Stone turned delicate by patient touch. Around the central images, panels showed guardians, goddesses, celestial beings, all arranged with symmetry that seemed to echo the order of the universe. No surface was wasted, even the borders bloomed with vines, leaves, and tiny figures of musicians and dancers. The art was not for ornament alone, it was teaching in stone. A pilgrim could walk into a shrine, gaze upon a single image, and understand life is fragile, suffering is real, but beyond both lies a peace as steady as the lotus floating on water. The silence of the statues was more eloquent than any sermon. They invited the viewer not to worship with noise, but to listen within. Outside the monastery walls, life was simple but connected. Villagers offered grain to the monks. Potters brought jars. Farmers brought fruit. In return, they received blessings, counsel, sometimes the comfort of medicine prepared by learned hands. The monastery was not apart from the people, it was woven into daily life, like a thread that strengthened the whole cloth. Seasons passed, as they always do. Rain darkened the bricks. Moss climbed the steps. The river carved new channels. Kings rose and fell. Armies marched. And yet the lotus and the stone endured. When the wind shifted, carrying dust of conflict, students still bent over their manuscripts. Sculptors still shaped statues. Pilgrims still arrived with tired feet but hopeful eyes. Wisdom and beauty do not fear the noise of the world. They simply wait, like a lotus unfolding when the sun returns. There were times, of course, when silence was broken. Invaders came. Walls cracked. Flames licked the manuscripts. Monks fled, carrying what books they could. Temples fell into ruin. Statues lay buried in earth. Yet, even this did not erase the spirit of the place. Centuries later, when villagers dug in their fields, they uncovered fragments, a carved lotus, a broken hand of a statue, the edge of a manuscript hardened by time. Each discovery was a whisper from the past, saying we are not gone. We only sleep. Today, ruins of Somapura still stand. The great monastery stretches wide, its red bricks glowing at sunset. Birds nest in the broken walls. Grasses wave in the courtyards where once students chanted. Tourists walk with cameras. But if one pauses in silence, one can still hear the echo of footsteps, the murmur of lessons, the low hum of prayers that filled the air for centuries. The lotus is gone, the stone remains, yet together they still speak. For Bengal, the legacy is not conquest or treasure, but this, the marriage of thought and art, of lotus and stone. It is the reminder that beauty can be carved from hardness, that wisdom can rise from soil, that patience is stronger than power. The lotus blooms each morning. Fragile, temporary, the stone endures through centuries. Silent, immovable. Together, they balance the truth of human life, fleeting moments and lasting memory, breath and eternity. As night falls, the ruins darken. The last rays of sun catch the bricks, turning them into embers. Before vanishing, owls stir, bats flutter, the wind cools. The statues sit in their eternal meditation, eyes half closed, lips calm, unbothered by time. The lotus sleeps folded in the pond nearby, waiting for another dawn, and the city slept beneath the northern sky. The rivers of Bengal do not end in silence. They widen, deepen, and stretch their arms toward the sea. Along their banks, where fresh water meets salt, ports have risen since time beyond memory. They are not ports of stone walls and iron gates, but of bamboo piers and wooden warehouses, of sails that rise like forests and ropes that creak like restless animals. Here, commerce flows as naturally as the tide, quiet yet unstoppable. At dusk, the air around the harbor glows with a copper light. Boats gather in from the channels, their sails folding slowly, their hulls heavy with the weight of the day's journeys. Some carry baskets of rice and jute, others jars of ghee and honey, others still bundles of muslin wrapped tight against the damp. Spices ride the air: cinnamon, pepper, cardamom scents sharp enough to stir the appetite. Even after a long day, children run barefoot along the docks, chasing after shadows, laughing as gulls circle above with shrill cries. Merchants sit on low wooden stools, weighing goods with brass scales that glint in the fading light. They do not raise their voices. Bargains are spoken in tones as soft as prayers. For all know, the rules of exchange are older than any man, as old as the river itself. A bale of cloth for a sack of pepper, jars of jaggery for dried fish, sandalwood from the uplands for salt drawn from the sea. The balances tilt, then rest, and another bargain is complete. Nothing is hurried. Nothing is wasted. The port is alive with many tongues. Sailors from distant lands wander the markets, their faces weathered, their eyes curious. From the east come men with lacquered boxes and silk. From the west come men with bronze vessels and horses. They ask questions in broken words, gesture with their hands, and the locals respond with smiles, showing spices, cloth, and clay. There is no shouting, no suspicion. The river has taught them that all things flow, and trade is simply another current. As night approaches, lamps are lit along the wharf. Small flames in clay bowls glow against the darkness, their reflections wavering on the water. The harbor seems to breathe with these lights, as if the stars themselves have descended to rest for a moment on the tide. Men unload sacks of areca nuts. Women stack bundles of bananas. Children carry jars of oil, their little bodies bent under the load, but their eyes bright. Work continues, but the pace softens. It is no longer about urgency, but about completing what must be done before the night claims the river. The sound of the port is a tapestry of many threads. There is the groan of wood as ships settle into the current, the splash of oars as smaller boats drift in, the low murmur of voices trading goods, the rhythmic call of sailors pulling ropes. Above it all, the wind sings through the masts, turning them into a forest of hollow flutes. The music is not planned, yet it feels inevitable. It carries the heart into stillness, even as movement surrounds it. Sometimes, storms come. Clouds roll in from the sea, black and heavy, and waves rise against the piers. Merchants scramble to cover their wares. Sailors shout to secure their boats. Children are pulled into shelters. Rain lashes down, turning the dock into a shining mirror of water. But even then, fear does not rule. The people know the storm will pass, as all storms do. When the clouds break, the lamps are lit again, and the harbor resumes its patient work. The river does not hold grudges, it always returns to calm. In the distance, temples stand by the ports, their spires catching the last light of day. Travelers pause to bow, offering a prayer for safe passage. Some scatter flowers into the tide, watching them drift out to sea. Fragile gifts carried to unknown shores. Faith is not separate from trade here, it is part of the same current. A trust that the river and the gods will guide both goods and souls to their proper destination. For the villagers who live nearby, the port is more than commerce. It is a window to the wider world. Children hear stories of lands where snow never melts, of islands where coconuts fall like rain, of deserts where stars burn sharper than fire. They may never travel so far, but the goods, the voices, and the faces that pass through their harbor bring those distant worlds close enough to dream. And yet, despite this vastness, the rhythm of the port remains humble. Merchants return home after the work is done. Families eat together in courtyards. Their meals, simple rice, fish, lentils. The river may connect them to far horizons, but their hearts rest in the same soil, under the same sky. The wealth of the port is not measured only in goods exchanged, but in stories gathered, in patience learned, in lives touched by the tide. As night deepens, the harbor grows quiet, sails are furled, ropes secured, warehouses closed. Only the occasional lantern sways in the wind, casting its light on empty docks. The tide rises and falls, whispering against the stones, carrying with it the memory of countless journeys. Above, the stars return, brighter now, reflected in the dark water. The world seems both vast and near, restless and calm. The city rests. Boats rock gently at anchor. Dreams gather in the hearts of sailors. Lamps flicker, one by one, into silence. The port, so alive at dusk, now folds into the night like a scroll closed after reading, and the city slept beneath the northern sky. In the heart of Bengal's towns, life unfolded with two distinct rhythms, the quiet order of the court and the restless murmur of the bazaar. Together, they formed the pulse of the land, one voice steady, measured, framed by law, the other lively, unpredictably, humming with trade and chatter. Neither could exist without the other. The court was often a hall of brick and carved wood, shaded by tall pillars and cooled by courtyards where neem trees cast wide shadows. At dawn, clerks arrived, carrying bundles of palm leaf manuscripts tied in red thread. They laid them on low desks, unrolling them carefully. The letters, dark as if freshly written, judges entered quietly, their robes simple, their speech calm. They did not shout commands, they listened. Disputes of land, of inheritance, of water rights along the bunds, all came before them. Petitioners bowed low, voices trembling, then waited in silence as the elders spoke. The law was not written in endless pages. It was remembered in proverbs, in precedents, in the wisdom of those who had watched many seasons pass. The goal was not punishment, but balance. If a cow strayed into a neighbor's field, if a boat drifted beyond its share of the river, if a debt lingered too long, the court sought not to break ties but to mend them. A settlement was worth more than a sentence. When both sides left with bowed heads and calm steps, the hall considered itself victorious. Beyond the court, the bazaar stretched like a living river. At sunrise, stalls unfolded, bright cloth thrown over bamboo poles, baskets overturned to reveal spices, haas set upright, their lids removed to release fragrance. The air thickened with scents, turmeric, mustard oil, fried sweets, fresh-cut jute. Colors dazzled the eye, indigo-dyed cloth, copper vessels polished to fire, piles of fruit stacked like little mountains. Voices rose, not in anger, but in rhythm, sellers calling, buyers answering, children tugging at sleeves, animals snorting as they pulled carts through the crowd. In the bazaar, nothing was still. A goldsmith hammered a bracelet in a steady beat. A barber sharpened his blade on a stone, chatting all the while. Women bargained for bangles, their laughter quick, their eyes sharp. Travelers from far ports brought news, along with goods, tales of storms at sea, of kings beyond the horizon, of caravans that vanished in deserts. People listened, half in belief, half in wonder. The bazaar was not only a place of trade, it was a place of stories, of gossip, of dreams that grew larger with every retelling. Between court and bazaar, the ruler moved quietly. A king might hold audience in the morning, hearing petitions beneath a canopy, a peacock fan swaying slowly behind him. In the afternoon, he might walk among the stalls disguised, listening to voices, watching how justice and commerce shaped his people. Power here was not absolute. It rested on patience, on fairness, on the unspoken agreement that a ruler who listened would be obeyed, and a ruler who ignored would be forgotten. Temples and mosques stood near these centers of life, their bells and calls reminding all that beyond law and trade lay the silence of faith. Merchants paused in mid-bargain to bow their heads. Judges left the hall at dusk to offer prayers. There was no wall between sacred and ordinary. Both were threads in the same cloth, each giving the other strength. When festivals came, court and bazaar blended into one. The judges' hall filled with music. The market overflowed with flowers, sweets, and colored powders. Men danced with abandon. Women sang. Children ran in every direction. The air grew thick with smoke from incense and frying oil. Merchants earned little on those days, but none complained. The festival was a greater profit, a wealth of joy that no account book could measure. Yet even in joy, order remained. The ruler ensured that roads stayed clear, that no quarrels spoiled the celebration. Elders walked among the crowd, calming disputes with a hand on the shoulder or a gentle word. Balance, once again, was the highest law. The people of Bengal knew that without balance, the river would flood too high, the market would collapse, the court would lose respect. So they lived carefully, weaving justice and trade into the same pattern. As night fell, the bazaar emptied. Stalls closed. Lamps flickered out. Animals were led away. The court grew silent. Manuscripts rolled and tied. Doors shut. What remained was the echo, the memory of voices, the hum of bargains struck, the weight of judgments passed. Streets that had been crowded with color and sound now lay under the moonlight, quiet and still. The people returned home with baskets on their heads, coins in their pockets, stories on their tongues. Some spoke of justice won, others of a fine bargain, others of a tale brought by a stranger. All felt the same calm, another day complete. Another cycle of balance maintained. The court and the bazaar, different yet united, had played their roles, and tomorrow they would do so again, as surely as the river would rise with the tide. The night deepened. Stars shone above the rooftops. The breeze carried the scent of spices still lingering in the dust. Dogs curled in corners. Lamps burned low in doorways. Voices softened into dreams. The city folded into itself, resting until dawn, and the city slept beneath the northern sky. The delta remembers in layers. Silt settles. Fields rise. Old riverbeds become footpaths, and villages shift a little each generation, like boats nudged by a slow current. From above, it might seem as if nothing changes. From the ground, it is clear that everything does. Houses are rebuilt. Trees fall and sprout again. The water takes one bank and gives another. People grow used to it. They speak of place not as a fixed point, but as a companionship. We live with the river, and the river lives with us. When the floods come strong, they arrive without anger. The sky darkens by afternoon. Wind moves across the rice as a grey hand. The first sheets of rain turn dust to perfume. Then the water rises first at the ankles, then at the knees, then at the waist, and the world remakes its map. Boats tie up to mango trunks. Ducks claim the courtyards. Clay stoves are lifted onto wooden stands. Families gather on the highest platforms, cooking simple meals and telling old stories until the rain thins to a softer drum. There is fear, yes, but not surprise. Children stare at the brown, endless water with the awe one keeps for a great animal, powerful yet familiar. When the waters retreat, a new calm settles. Fish sparkle in puddles left in the fields. Men carry them home in baskets that drip like wet stars. The ground, rich with silt, yields easily to the plough. Women replant. Old paths are found again by memory alone. A bend in a hedge, a stone half buried, a shrine leaning at the same respectful angle. The village laughs at its own forgetfulness and then remembers. What was lost returns in another shape. Rulers change as rivers do wind. One banner follows another, seals on documents, trade emblems, the tax taker's language shifts its greeting. Yet the morning market opens at the same hour. The loom begins its quiet breath. Conch shells sound at dusk from the same doorways. A new official studies the bund. A new calendar names the months, but rice ripens to the same color, and children chase the same ducks along the bank. The people of the Delta store such changes not as wounds, but as threads, different shades woven into the same cloth. The pattern matters more than any single strand. In every village, there are keepers of story. Some speak in the courtyard after the evening meal, drawing circles in dust as the children gather close. Others sing as they cross the fields. Voices putting a thin golden line around memory so it does not wander away. A grandmother may tell of a famine when the well went dry. A boatman may recall a night of stars so bright that the river looked like a road of salt. These stories do not grow sharper with retelling. They grow kinder. The rough edges worn by many hands. A cruel year becomes a year of lessons. A tyrant becomes a figure who taught patience by requiring it. Such alchemy keeps the heart from breaking. Weavers of cloth learn this truth with their fingers. They join a weak thread to a strong one. Twist, moisten, draw it smooth, and send the shuttle forward. If a thread snaps, they stop, unmake a span, and begin again. What looks seamless from a distance is, up close, a long record of care, mistakes corrected, tensions adjusted, 1,000 small salvations hidden in the pattern. So it is with the memory of Bengal. It is not proud of its scars. It does not hide them either. It arranges them into a design the eye can rest upon. On some nights, when wind moves across the delta with a salt smell from the sea, elders recall cities that rose and faded along the estuaries. Names linger like shells, places where lighthouses once burned, where pepper racks lined the shore, where a coin carried the mark of a distant emperor. Now there may be a field in that spot, or a pond full of lotus, or a school with whitewashed walls. The children listen, their faces quiet. To them, the names are not losses but lullabies, proofs that the land is older than any one owner and that it will outlast the names we give it. There is a gentleness in the way grief is held here. When rain takes a home, hands arrive with bamboo and rope, a new frame rises by afternoon. When illness takes an elder, neighbors fill the courtyard with lamps, the night brightens against sorrow, and tea is poured until dawn. Prayers are spoken in many tunes, a hymn at one door, a zikr at another, yet the silence that follows is the same, deep and careful. As if the village places its ear to the earth to hear the old comfort from below, nothing is truly gone, it has only changed rooms. During the cool months, fairs return to the high ground. Stalls of clay toys, brass pots, dyed threads, and sweet fritters make small constellations of color against the pale fields. Wandering singers offer ballads of queens who outwitted kings, of monks who fed tigers with the patience of prayer, of lovers who crossed canals on palm trunks by moonlight. People press close, smiling. The songs are not history in the scholar's sense. They are history in the river's sense, a truth made smooth by long travel, a truth one can drink. Sometimes a traveler arrives with a hard story. He speaks of a new law, a new levy, a new fence at the edge of a familiar path. The village listens with lowered eyes. A murmur passes, not anger, not submission, only the sound of minds measuring. By morning, Some adjustment has begun. A canal widened to skirt the fence. A field replotted to avoid a dispute. A petition drafted in steady hands and sent downriver with the grain. Resistance here is not a blaze, it is a long tide. It works in the dark, returns with patience, and leaves the shore changed. What the Delta teaches, year after year, is that memory is a communal art. No one person holds the whole of it. The potter remembers which clay survives the hottest kiln. The boatman keeps the map of channels that shift after every flood. The midwife knows which herbs calm a fever when the doctor is far. The schoolmaster keeps the old poems that put courage into soft voices. When the village gathers, these pieces fit together, and the story becomes whole enough to sail by. Night settles with a softness that suggests forgiveness. Frogs begin their patient music. The last lamp in the last courtyard draws its circle of gold on damp earth. Inside, a mother, already half asleep, tells her child the short version of the long-tail river's change. Rulers change. We remain by helping one another remember. Outside, the water pulls at its banks like a sleeper turning in bed. The stars blink through thin cloud, shy and faithful. The city, which is to say the weaving of many villages, many courts, many markets, many songs, grows quiet. It has suffered, rejoiced, endured. It will do so again. Memory tightens its knots against the night, and the cloth holds, and the city slept beneath the northern sky. The rivers do not end. They slip into the sea. Yes, but even there the tide carries their breath back again. The Bengal Delta is not only land or water, it is a vast memory, written in silt, revised each season, never erased. When one stands at the edge of a rice field at dawn, or on the bank of a swollen river at dusk, it feels less like looking at geography and more like opening a book without beginning or end. Ruins still rest here, half hidden by trees. Red brick monasteries, whose walls once echoed with chants, now serve as nesting grounds for birds. Stone Buddhas with patient eyes gaze across weeds and time. Lips still curved in silence. Terracotta temples lean gently, their carvings softened by centuries of rain, yet still showing horses, dancers, gods with lotus in hand. To touch these bricks is to touch the warmth of lives long gone, the fingerprints of craftsmen whose names have dissolved but whose work remains. Villages rise beside them, smoke curling from clay stoves, children playing beside ponds. Life continues in the shadow of the ancient, not in awe but in quiet companionship. The past is not locked away here, it lives alongside the present. Like two neighbors sharing a boundary wall, a farmer may pause by an old shrine while leading his cow. A child may climb over a fallen pillar, chasing a kite. History is not fenced, it is woven into daily breath. The Delta has never belonged to one voice. Hindu chants, Muslim prayers, ball songs, Sufi hymns, each has poured itself into the same soil. Like tributaries, they join without erasing one another, forming a river of memory that carries many tongues, many hopes. Even today, festivals fill the air with drums and lamps, with voices rising in joy, while just beyond the crowd, the river flows steady, indifferent, yet embracing. Diversity here is not decoration, it is survival. Like reeds bound into a raft, difference makes strength. Trade, too, has left its imprint. Ports once glittered with muslin finer than mist, with spices sharp as fire, with sugar sweet enough to sweeten distant tongues. Foreign ships carried these goods away, but they also carried fragments of Bengal's patience, its songs, its quiet strength, even when storms sank the hulls, even when empires shifted. The taste and memory of this land lingered abroad, whispered in markets half a world away. Thus the Delta spoke without needing to conquer. Yet what endures most is not empire, not wealth, not monuments. It is the patience of ordinary life, the way a woman hums as she grinds spices at dusk, the way a fisherman mends his net by lantern light, each knot tied with care, the way neighbors gather after a flood, carrying bamboo poles, rebuilding what was lost without complaint. These moments, repeated through centuries, are the true strength of Bengal. They are soft, but unbreakable. At times, visitors arrive seeking spectacle. They expect grand ruins, glittering treasures, loud legends of kings. What they find instead is subtler, a field shining with water at sunrise, a song drifting across the river at night, a temple half buried but still fragrant with flowers left that morning. They leave puzzled, sometimes, but the land keeps whispering to them long after they go. Bengal does not dazzle the eyes, it lingers in the heart. To live here is to learn patience. The river teaches it with every flood and drought, the loom with every broken thread, the court with every careful judgment, the bazaar with every bargain struck softly. Patience is not weakness. It is the art of waiting, the knowledge that all things joy and sorrow, flood and harvest flow like water, returning again in time. The people of the Delta have carried this art through centuries, weaving it into every gesture, every story, every song. And so, standing here tonight, one can feel the eternal. The water glimmers under the moon, endless in its quiet. The fields sigh with wind, carrying the scent of rice and earth. Ruins glow faintly in starlight, not as ghosts, but as companions. The voices of the past do not cry out, they murmur. They say, "We were here. We are here. We will always be here." The lotus folds its petals for the night. The clay lamps burn low. Children fall asleep to the sound of rain tapping on thatch, to lullabies half sung, half remembered. The city, the village, the river, the memory all dissolve into the same calm, and the city slept beneath the northern sky. The rivers that cradle Bengal did not only carry rice and muslin, they also carried armies. For as long as kingdoms rose upon these waters, there were battles to fight, borders to defend, and banners to raise. The people of the Delta, gentle in their patience, were also fierce when the land demanded it. Their strength came not from deserts or mountains, but from elephants and rivers, from fleets of boats and fortresses of red brick. In the early centuries, under the rule of the Pala emperors, the army of Bengal became renowned across the plains of India. Their pride and terror were the war elephants, beasts massive as houses, armored in iron, their tusks fitted with blades, their backs carrying towers of archers. To hear them march was to feel the earth tremble, to see dust clouds rise like storm. Men who faced them often spoke of fear before the battle even began, for the sight of such creatures, trained and disciplined, was enough to make courage falter. Yet the people of Bengal did not treat these elephants only as engines of war. They were companions of kings, bathed and painted before festivals, honored as part of the eternal rhythm of life. Alongside the elephants moved infantry soldiers armed with bows, spears, and curved swords. Their discipline was quiet, their movements measured. They fought not as lone warriors, but as fields of grain, bending together, rising together, swaying like one body. Cavalry rode at their flanks, swift and decisive, trained to strike where the line grew thin. The army was not a mere collection of men, it was a living organism, a design of patience and force. The rivers gave Bengal another gift, the navy. No other land in India possessed such endless waterways, and the Bengalis turned them into avenues of defense and power. Warboats, sleek and fast, patrolled the channels, their hulls narrow, their prows sharp. Some carried archers, others small catapults that hurled fire or stone. When invaders came, they found not empty rivers, but fleets waiting, hidden in reeds, ready to strike and vanish like fish in the current. The navy was not only protection, it was pride, a reminder that this was a land no outsider could master easily. During the Bengal Sultanate, the army grew in new ways. Gunpowder arrived, and with it cannons and matchlocks. Fortresses along the rivers bristled with bronze mouths, their echoes rolling across the delta like thunder. Voichian still marched, but now they stood beside soldiers, carrying fire that split the night. It was a marriage of tradition and invention, ancient beasts and modern flame, both serving the same purpose to keep the land free. Merchants from far lands wrote of seeing Bengal's ports guarded by ships heavy with cannon, their decks lined with soldiers in bright cloth. They spoke of forts with gates so tall that elephants could pass beneath, of walls red as blood in the evening sun. They saw banners fluttering with crescent moons or lotus symbols, marking rulers who held both faith and power in their grasp. To them, Bengal was not only a place of trade, but of formidable defense. Yet, even in its might, the army of Bengal carried the same patience as its fields and rivers. Battles were not fought for conquest alone, but for balance to keep the channels open, the fields safe, the villages at peace. Victory was not measured only in enemies defeated, but in the harvest that followed, the trade that continued, the songs that could still be sung at night without fear. Strength was never separate from life, it was part of the weave. Legends remain of commanders who led with calm voices, of elephants who remembered battlefields decades later, of sailors who could guide their boats through storms by listening to the river's voice. These stories are not shouted, they are murmured, half in pride, half in gratitude. They remind the people that while power passes, memory endures. And the army of Bengal, though scattered by centuries, still walks in those memories. Today, ruins of forts stand along the rivers, their bricks softened by moss, their cannons rusting in silence. The elephants have returned to forests, the warboats to silt. But if one listens carefully at dusk, when the wind moves across the delta, It is easy to imagine the sound of drums echoing, of banners snapping in the storm, of the river carrying armies as it once carried trade. The land remembers, as it remembers all things. The mighty army of Bengal was never only an instrument of war. It was part of the eternal Delta patient, powerful, born of water and stone, of silence and thunder. It showed that even a land of soft fields and flowing rivers could rise in strength when needed, that gentleness and might are not enemies, but companions, and so its memory endures, as enduring as the rivers themselves. The moon rises over the old battlements, the fields lie quiet, yet the earth holds echoes of marching feet, of the trumpet of elephants, of sails cutting against the current. The city rests, its battles long over, its story still alive in stone and song. And the city slept beneath the northern sky. And so our journey drifts to its end, from rice fields to terracotta shrines, from songs in the night to the quiet patience of rivers. We have walked softly through the memory of Bengal. Its story is not only carved in stone or written in books, but in the daily breath of its people, in whispers that still rise with the dawn and rest with the dusk. If this story has kept you company tonight, let it not be the last. There are many more journeys to share, many more civilizations waiting in the silence of time. I invite you to stay with us to subscribe, so that each new tale may find you when the night is quiet again. Until then, sleep well, dream gently, and the city slept beneath the northern sky.